Liz Barentzen, and I'm Vice President of Operations and Talent Initiatives at the Center for Audit Quality. I'm here today with Elena Richards, who is KPMG's Chief of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and we are going to talk about KPMG's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion 2020 U.S. Transparency Report. So welcome, Elena.
Thank you, Liz. Great to be here.
Yeah, with that, I'd like to just jump right in. And if you could maybe first start by telling us a little bit about your own personal career experience, what led you to this role as KPMG's Chief Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer?
Yes, so I have been in this role since November of 2020 and am their Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, and really spent the last 21 years working in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Prior to the firm, I worked at another professional services firm, and prior to that, I worked for an organization called Inroads that placed talented minority youth in organizations like KPMG.
Interesting. So you've been on both sides of
HR, started in HR, started in recruiting, did line roles to support, and then, brought diversity to every role that I've had. I say that that's part of the DNA and trying to really think about the impact to all of our people as we move forward. And so very fortunate for this opportunity and to be able to help in a different way here at the firm.
Yeah, that's great. Could you tell me a little bit about what you see as the most rewarding aspects of your job and some of the most challenging aspects of your job?
So rewarding would be the fact that you are working every day with leaders that are passionate about what we're trying to accomplish and really get what we're trying to do. Some of the frustrating parts are still that you're trying to bring people along to sort of see what's the bigger picture and how they play a role. When I say, do I mean frustration? I think it's more of why they don't see themselves on the diversity journey, or why people sometimes feel like it's a zero-sum game. It's not at the expense of any group of what we're trying to accomplish. It really is, if we grow the entire pie and think about diversity being a part of us truly being more innovative, growth-minded organizations, then there's room for everyone. And so that's sort of the frustrating part, but also the rewarding thing that we're all trying to go after. And so as we think about where we go in this work, trying to get people on board in whatever motivates them. And sometimes that's the challenge, but also the reward. So I look forward to trying to help our organization, but others in the communities we serve to understand and appreciate that in a different way.
It's important work and challenging for sure.
And challenging, yes.
And challenging.
And seeing someone, reach their full potential. So I will honestly say, Liz, one of the best parts of my job is also coaching and advising people to help reach some of their aspirations and helping them move forward.
Yeah.
Coaching is a big part of that. And I love doing that part of my job, probably the most. And so seeing people reach that is really good for me.
What was the impetus for KPMG to share publicly your D&I strategy and firm-wide demographic data?
So I will say that the transparency report was a journey for the firm and really built off Paul's efforts around Accelerate 2025. That is an effort that he started prior to me joining the firm, but really his legacy and wanting to put stake in the ground that we as an organization were going to move forward in this space and what that means. And so a way for us to engage everyone, I talked about everyone seeing themselves and what we're trying to accomplish, that this is a way for not only our internal professionals to see what we're doing and where we're trying to go, but also for our stakeholders and community at large. And so that was the reason why we launched our transparency report and provided people with insight into where we're trying to go. And then a mirror to ourselves each and every year on how we're doing, the progress against it and reaching those aspirations.
Understanding current state and your aspirational future state and relations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the Accelerate 2025 program? What is it? main objective? What are some of the work streams that you've developed to support it?
Yes. So Accelerate, again, is what Paul sort of launched, and the goal of trying to make KPMG the employer of choice and where people want to grow their careers and reach their highest potential. And with that, if you think about the entire talent life cycle, we are looking at ways to attract more talent to the profession. So when we think about that, we're trying to think broadly of early access and identification, all the way through how we acquire talent and how we onboard and integrate them into the organization. So that's sort of the sphere or pillar we call getting here. Then absolutely thinking about how do we optimize the experiences at the firm. So when we think about succeeding here, that's the second pillar. How do we make sure that once you're here, that you're reaching your highest potential and that you have access to opportunities and individuals are here to help support you in the way. We want that to be as consistent for all of our people as possible. And then leading here is, what is it that you want to accomplish? Rise to the stars, right? Is it reaching a managing director or partner? But before that, you have to become a senior, a manager, a director, right? So what is it that you need to accomplish those goals, and how are we going to support you? So in that, there's also leadership opportunities. So once you make partner, then there's other things that you aspire to as far as leadership roles. So we call that our leading here pillar. And not only in the firm, we also want you to be leaders in your communities. So we look at the entire life cycle. And so that's what Accelerate 2025 is, from early access and identification all the way through what we think about succession and leaders in the community.
It's excellent. And it just brings to mind when you were talking about how you find coaching fulfilling. I imagine, all those conversations you're having along the way and coaching others to have those coaching conversations.
That is the highlight, right? Yeah. So working with our business leaders to try to accomplish that each and every day, looking to be their trusted advisor and how they accomplish that for their business functions. I truly am happy with where we are in the level of engagement. That is what has brought me here, and their support and push forward to running this in their business is really a big part of how we're trying to move forward. And then ultimately, how do our staff feel about it? Engaging with our professionals to make sure that this is an environment where they feel that they can be successful is important as well. And so how do we put the infrastructure in place to make sure that we're successful has been the journey, but also the opportunity.
Yeah. Excellent. Can you tell us a little bit more about what KPMG is doing to seed diverse talent? Find
diverse talent. Yes. We're trying to turn over every opportunity, right? So looking at unique opportunities, right? Not only just on our traditional schools that we recruit from, but now in this virtual nature and the ways of which we're working, is there a way to have more people that are interested in the firm? And how do we try to get the word out and increase our brand awareness around the profession? Because we need to figure out a way to make this profession more attractive and bring the sexy back to accounting. And that is a big part of ways to identify the brand. So we're looking for ways to do that. We are also obviously looking at senior talent in different ways and trying to use our relationships, our alumni network, and others that can hopefully want to be ambassadors to bring more talent to the firm. So there's lots of things that we're trying to do with our communities across the board to help amplify our efforts. But a big part of that is bringing more talent to the firm. We can't stop there, but then also thinking about the ways of which we make sure that the talent that we have here, that we're growing them in the right way and making sure that they feel that they have the opportunities to be successful, and trying to think about any ways that we can do that better.
Yeah, it is a cycle and it's all connected, and it has
Absolutely.
to be connected. Yeah.
Absolutely. And making sure that they have the right sponsors and people that are looking out for their careers in the right way. That's got to be all aspects of the life cycle that we're looking at. So looking at really our processes and in ways of which that people are trying to make sure that they're looking at that in a more open and objective way.
And when you look at the data overall in your transparency report, What do you find to be the most encouraging, and where do you see the biggest challenges?
I would say there's definitely opportunity everywhere at all aspects of our transparency report. Campus hires is going to still be a big volume spot for us, but I also think the opportunity is some of our experienced hires. So that's encouraging, where you think about people that have gone and built their careers at other places, thinking about KPMG as an employer. And so how do we do that? Really leveraging our relationships, the power of this firm is going to be able to help amplify that. So we're looking to our own professionals to help us bring that talent to the firm. And so that's an important aspect. I think the other piece where we have an opportunity, and I say this, is how are we looking at the suppliers and people that we do business with, and trying to figure out ways to do that in a different way as well. So it has to be all ends of the enterprise that we as a firm are looking at. It's also important that I can't understate us all being aware too of some of our own blind spots in this work, right? Because whether we want to admit it or not, there is bias in each and every one of us. And so a big part of what we also need to do is how we all make decisions and making sure that that's objective as possible. And when we look at talent, what are you doing to open up your mind to others that may not be either in your sphere that you're used to, or broader? Because ultimately, the greatest amount of diversity we oftentimes face or deal with has been in the workplace. And so for some, this is the first and most diverse spot that we're in our entire life. And so we want to make sure that we're self-aware of that. So another big part of our strategy is making sure that we are very mindful of that and building that into our curriculum for everyone is another big piece of our strategy. So engaging everyone's got to be a part of that.
Yeah, super important, that self-awareness piece. It begins with ourselves. And
and it's a muscle. So I don't think people think that if I go through unconscious bias education that I am now fixed of my bias, because I will tell you, each and every one of us bring bias to every decision that we make, and or walk through the doors and walk down the street. So that's part of a muscle that we need to massage and grow each and every day. So,
and the opportunity is that growth. It can be developed and grown. So it's
right. It's got to be a growth mindset, right? Like, how do you make sure as you learn, right, you get better at making decisions each and every time.
Love it. So KPMG really did set some aspirational goals in thinking about, by end of 2025, a 50% increase of Black and Latinx representation. And in your mind, what is the value of a publicly stated goal like that?
Something to shoot for, that we need to make sure that we put something out there that we want to aspire to. And we have to put all the resources and energy and the power of this firm behind it. So what are we doing to go out and really look at talent in a different way? Are we thinking about other opportunities to do that? And quite frankly, that's everybody's job. So the power of 36,000 employees trying to work towards that together, I think, is a powerful way for us to think about it. And organizationally, that each and every one of us are working towards that goal. I think that's what we're aspiring to, in whatever way that might be. I can be looking at, how do I develop a future high schooler that can be a future hire? I can think about in my Rolodex of who I'm doing business with. How do I think about coming to the firm? So everybody has to see themselves in helping us achieve that goal.
And what advice would you give to other firm leaders that are considering sharing their demographic data?
I know it's a big debate, right? So a lot of organizations may have some concerns with doing that. I will say it helps, at least for everybody, to talk the same language and know what we're trying to do. And so if we could all be explicit on what that is, then I think it helps us all work towards seeing ourselves in part of the solution. So how do you see yourself in helping us? How do you think about your individual business objectives and the role you'll help us play in achieving our goals? And so I think we're all in it together, that's got to be a part of it. And so hopefully I encourage others to think about doing that in a way that they're comfortable, but know that might take a process and know for sure that if you're working towards the solution and can really think about the steps you're taking, then it's worth it. Then it absolutely is worth it.
Well, thank you. And I really commend the work that you've done with KPMG, and it's exciting to see such commitment and engagement from your firm.
And I take that and our leadership support in helping us accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So thanks for the opportunity to be with you, Liz.
Yep.